Welcome brewers and beer lovers to Flying Wombat TV, where we're all about making fun and creative styles of beer with biotechnology and science involved. So today we're going to be taking you through our 10 tips and tricks for brewers when you're first getting into brewing. So when you're a novice and you just either done a couple batches or you're thinking about getting into brewing, these 10 tips and tricks are for you, and it's going to save you a whole world of trouble later down the track. Enjoy. First tip on the list, always make room for a mess, because shit always goes wrong when you least expect it. So don't, fit your fermenter into a tight little spot that's just enough space for it in between other things that you don't want to get dirty. Don't go mashing in or, actually doing your brew day in a space where it could damage, electronics, or just make a mess in a space that's going to be really hard to clean. Always give yourself heaps of room for spillovers, for gunk, for, grain dust to go everywhere. Always leave room for a mess. Tip number 2, record absolutely everything you do. And what I mean by that is write down everything that goes on in your brew day, all the stats, all the kilos, the grams you use for the hops, for the grains, for how long you leave things in. Record and write down absolutely everything. And it does sound like a no-brainer, but if there's little mistakes that you make and you're kind of like, oh, I don't really want to write that one down, I won't make that mistake next time, whatever, write everything down, because everything you do will influence the type of beer and the taste that it's going to have later down the track. So if you actually write down everything that you've done on that brew day, then it's going to make it a lot easier when you're trying to figure out what to do next time for your next batch and how to make it taste even better. Tip number 3. I wasn't ready. Okay. Tip number 3, make a brew day checklist. So I don't really use a checklist anymore. Probably should, to be honest. It is a really great idea, especially when you're first starting brewing. There's just things that you forget to do. It just happens all the time. Like you forget to switch that heating element off. You forget to go back to your mash when it's been the allotted time that you wanted to mash in for. You forget to add, these World Flock tablets or whatever it might be. You just forget things because we're human. It's only natural. So have a brew day checklist so that you can go about your brew day, tick everything off as you go. You're not going to forget anything, and it's going to save you a world of hurt down the track. Tip number 4. This one is specifically for all grain brewing, and whether you're first getting to all grain brewing or you've made a couple batches or you're about to get into it, make your first beer a smash. What that means is single malt and single hop. So the idea behind this is that if you're using a whole bunch of different hops, a whole bunch of different specialty grains for your first couple of all grains, you're not going to know what ingredients are contributing what flavors, because there's just so much going on. But if you make your first beer a smash, it's going to make it a much simpler brew day for you, and you're actually going to be able to know what ingredients are contributing, what flavors, what aromas, what mouthfeels, what alcohol percentages. So make your first beer a smash. It's going to make you much more familiar with the ingredients that you're working with. Tip number 5, use someone else's recipe. So when I say that, I mean when you're making a new style of beer that you haven't brewed before, use someone else's recipe so that you get an idea of where your starting point should be. So whether that's, from your local homebrew store, from a Facebook page, from a homebrewing forum, get someone's recipe that a lot of people have made and that a lot of people have been happy with, because it will give you a great starting point to understand what kind of grains you should use, how much of each grain, what kind of hops you should use, what your hop schedule should look like, what kind of yeast you should use, what your brew day should look like. There's a lot of stuff going on. So if it's a new style of beer that you have never made before, use a tried and tested recipe to give you a great starting point for when you want to tweak it and make your own recipe. Tip number 6, spend heaps of time planning your recipes. So similar to tip number 5, getting a good base for what your recipe should look like. If you're going to spend all this time and effort and money, putting your brew day together, you don't just want to rush the recipe. Spend, a good couple of days thinking about it in your downtime. If you're watching a bit of telly, grab your laptop open, play around with what variables you're going to throw in. Just spend a lot of time planning your recipe. Don't just shotgun it on the day and hope for the best, because it's just a lot of time and effort that you're going to waste. It takes weeks for your beer to finish. You don't want to end up in 3 weeks from now and go, damn it, I wish I'd spent, a couple more hours thinking about what hops I was going to use. Spend a bit of time actually planning out what you're going to do. It will just reward you in the long run. Tip number 7. This one is from personal experience. When I first started brewing, take it easy on the specialty malts when you're getting started or when you're trying new styles of beer. I had a couple batches where I was going so aggressively on the specialty malts, like heaps of biscuit malt, heaps of caramel, heaps of crystallized malts, heaps of, brown malts, aurora malts, acidified malts, whatever it was. I had a beer that was, the whole grain bill was just specialty malt and it tasted like rotten garbage. So take it easy on the specialty malts, less is more. You can always add a bit more on your next batch and get more flavor out of it. But if you're throwing way too much in to begin with, it's just gonna taste like an absolute hot mess and you're not even gonna know if you're on the right track. So less is more, take it easy on the specialty malts. You can always ramp it up on subsequent batches. Tip number 8, only change a couple variables at a time. Take a scientific approach to brewing. If you've got a recipe that you like and you're trying to improve it and you're trying to tweak it to get it to that next level, only change a couple things at a time. Less is more when it comes to understanding how to improve your beers. So if you're changing the hops and the grains and the time you mash for and the time you ferment for, it's going to be way too hard to understand which variable was the thing that actually improved or worsened that recipe. So only change and tweak a couple things at a time as you're trying to perfect your beers. Tip number 9, and I see this all the time on Facebook forums, on Insta, on Reddit channels, Reddit groups, whatever. Don't open your fermenter. Don't stress, be patient. The yeast will do its job. You can take gravity readings if you want to after like a week, 2 weeks, whatever, but don't just keep opening your fermenter every couple hours, every couple days to see what it's looking like, to see if it's on track. It will be fine. Patience is key. But if you keep opening up your fermenter, you're just opening it to the whole world where there's all kinds of bacteria and fungi and everything floating around in the atmosphere. That's gonna get into your beer, it will infect it, and then your beer will be skunked and it won't be drinkable. So don't open your beer, keep it closed, be patient, the yeast will do its job.
I don't think I've ever heard it will be skunked.
Skunked? Yeah, you never heard that?
No.
It means that it tastes like shit. Tip number 10, clean, 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 clean. Hygiene is king. Being a brewer, 90% of your time is just being a janitor. Clean everything, sanitize everything, use the right chemicals to sanitize your stuff. We'll put links down in the comments section for cleaning stuff that we use. Stella San is a great example. Just make sure everything is spotless, very, very clean, because that's where the bacteria grows, that's where all kinds of different fungi grow, that's what's gonna screw up your beers. So whether it's your mashing equipment, your boiling equipment, your fermenter, anything that is going to come into contact with your end product, make sure it is spotless. So hope you enjoyed the tips, guys, and any questions, please feel free to drop us a comment below. Brew on. Specifically for all grain brewing. Tip number 4.
All brain brewing?
All brain brewing. All right. Tip number 4. This one is specifically for all grain brewing. It's in my head now.